am presenting Union Gospel Press's Sunday School Lesson number 11, Sunday, February 13th, 2022. The lesson is entitled Pilate, What is Truth? Lesson text comes from John chapter 18, verses 28 through 40. Related scriptures are Isaiah 53, 1 through 9, Matthew 27, 11 through 18, 20 through 24, Mark 15, 1 through 15, Luke 18, 32 through 33, and 23, 1 through 25. The place is Jerusalem. The time is 30 AD. In a time when much of modern day thinking rejects the reality of objective knowledge, it is becoming more difficult for many people to recognize truth when they see it. In fact, the concept of truth has become outdated and old-fashioned to many modern critics of Christianity. Jesus Christ stands in direct confrontation with the realism of today's societal climate. He not only brought a timeless message of truth to the world, indeed, he is the very embodiment of truth. We cannot deal honestly with the teachings and person of Jesus while attempting to sidestep truth. Some things are true and other things are false. Modern theories aside, some things cannot be refuted. Truth starts with understanding who Jesus is and what his mission is all about. Today's aim. Facts. To be clear that Jesus was tried by the Roman authorities to fulfill prophecy. Principle. To recognize Jesus as a king of divine origin, bearing witness to the truth. Application. To submit to the rule of Jesus over our lives and to know that objective knowledge is possible through a relationship with Christ. Illustrating the lesson. We should bow in worship and submission to our crucified and risen King. Practical points. 1. Some religious people do discable things. John 18:28. 2. We should not expect straightforward answers from people bent on doing wrong. Verses 29 through 30. 3. The Lord uses the plans of evil people to bring about his own plan for our salvation. Verses 31 through 32. 4. We need wisdom to tell if some people's questions are sincere or hiding an agenda. Verses 33 through 35. 5. The hearts of those who follow Jesus have been opened to the truth. Verses 36 through 37. 6. Like Jesus, we can be cleared of wrongdoing and still suffer an unjust penalty. Verses 38 through 40. Golden text. Jesus answered, My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then would my servants fight that I should not be delivered to the Jews? But now is my kingdom not from hence. John 18:36. Today we have 3 lesson outlines. The first is delivered to the Gentiles. John 18:28 through 32. The second is faced with truth. John 18:33 through 38a. And the third is truth discarded. John 18:38b through 40. Introduction. Justice is a great concern for many people who should be a concern of all. A careful observer realizes, however, that we live in a world where injustice often prevails. Criminals may get away with evil deeds for many years before being apprehended. Even then, a conviction is not necessarily assured. Sometimes an offender may even be released on a technicality. Police and judges are often bribed. As Solomon said, there is no new thing under the sun. Ecclesiastes 1:9. This certainly applies to injustice. Whatever accounts of injustice we may be aware of, either ancient or modern, none can compare to the injustice that was perpetrated throughout the trial of Jesus Christ. But even this monumental injustice was a tool in the hand of the sovereign God to bring salvation to the world. Delivered to the Gentiles. John 18:28. Then led they Jesus to Caiaphas, unto the hall of judgment, and it was early. And they themselves went not into the judgment hall, lest they should be defiled, but that they might eat the Passover. Verse 29. Pilate then went out unto them and said, What accusation bring ye against this man? Verse 30. They answered and said unto him, If he were not a malefactor, we would not have delivered him up unto thee. Verse 31. Then said Pilate unto them, Take ye him and judge him according to your law. The Jews therefore said unto him, It is not lawful for us to put any man to death. Verse 32. That the saying of Jesus might be fulfilled, which he spake, signifying what death he should die. Fear of defilement. John 18:28. Within a matter of hours after his arrest in Gethsemane, Jesus endured 6 trials. These were before Annas, Caiaphas, the Sanhedrin, Pilate, Herod Antipas, and Pilate again. A lot of legal proceedings for one day, especially when we realize that the outcome was already decided before the first trial. Jesus stood before all the authorities of his time, the Jewish authorities, the Roman authorities, and even the Galilean authorities. Providentially, this makes all the peoples of the world responsible for Jesus' condemnation and death. No one is innocent of his blood, yet his blood redeems us all. After being formally charged with blasphemy before the Sanhedrin, over which Caiaphas presided, Mark 14:53-65, Jesus was led away to Pilate, the Roman governor. The hall of judgment, John 18:28, is literally the praetorium, the residence of the governor. Since the governor's primary residence was in Caesarea, this alternate residence was used by Pilate whenever he was in Jerusalem. That the Roman governor and a large contingent of soldiers were present was a precautionary measure, since Jewish nationalism ran high during the Passover. A Jewish rebellion was always anticipated at such things. It was still early morning, not very long after Peter had denied Jesus the 3rd time at daybreak. The trial before the Sanhedrin would not have taken long, since they had already decided that they wanted to put Christ to death. The Jewish leaders were very scrupulous about avoiding ceremonial defilement, so they refused to enter Pilate's residence. It is ironic that they were so obsessed with avoiding defilement from contact with a Gentile, yet could be oblivious to the defilement they would incur in condemning an innocent man to death by crucifixion. Concerning the Passover, John's comment seems to indicate that the feast had not yet occurred. If correct, that means Jesus and the 12 had eaten the Passover one day early. But a more likely possibility is that Passover is used here of the week-long feast of unleavened bread that followed the actual Passover meal. Either way, the leaders' religious scruples betrayed their blatant hypocrisy. These men were scrupulous to avoid any ritual defilement, even while they were carrying out the most vile act of human history. As they delivered the Lamb of God to the slaughter, they made sure their hands were ceremonially clean. Empty denunciation, John 18:29-31. Placating the Jewish leaders, Pilate came outside to hear their complaint. As Roman governor, he alone held the legal power of life or death over those accused of crimes. Jesus' trial occurred at a time in which the Jewish authorities no longer were allowed to execute criminals themselves. That power had been taken from them by the Romans around 6 or 7 BC. This is significant because it again shows God's sovereign providential ordering of history so that Jesus' prophecies would be fulfilled, that he would be delivered over to the Gentiles to be crucified, Matthew 20:19, Mark 10:33, Luke 18:31-33. If the Jews had still retained the power of capital punishment at this time, his death would have been carried out by stoning, the prescribed Jewish method. Although the Jewish authorities had already condemned Jesus to death, they knew that their condemnation had to be confirmed and carried out by Roman authority. Rather than explicitly state the controversial nature of Jesus' crime to a Gentile authority, they tried to get Pilate to take their word alone as significant grounds for Jesus' execution. The word malefactor merely means evildoer. The word criminal would be a modern equivalent. Fulfillment of prophecy, John 18:32. On numerous occasions, Matthew 20:18 through 19, 26 through 2, 26:2, Mark 18:31, 9:31, 10:33 through 34, Luke 9:25, Luke 9:22, 25 and 51. Jesus had told his disciples that he was headed to Jerusalem, where he would be rejected and killed. That the means of his death would be by crucifixion is implied in statements about him being lifted up. John 3:14, 12:32 through 33. In order for all of these prophecies to be fulfilled, the Jews needed to hand Jesus over to the Romans for crucifixion. The Old Testament stipulated that if a criminal was executed and then hanged on a tree, his body would be taken down and buried by nightfall, Deuteronomy 21:22 through 23. This was because anyone so hanged was cursed by God, and leaving him hanging after nightfall would spread that curse upon the land itself. Quoting this verse, Paul writes, Christ have redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us. For it is written, Cursed is every one that hangeth on a tree, Galatians 3:13. In Jesus' case, hanging on a tree had to do with crucifixion. As Peter writes, who his own self bare our sins in his own body on the tree, 1 Peter 2:24. Crucifixion was an extremely painful and humiliating manner of death. In some cases, a victim would hang on the cross for days before succumbing. As a public display, it was intended to strike fear into the hearts of those witnessing it, reinforcing the seriousness of breaking Roman law. Realizing that the Jewish religious leaders were trying to entangle him in some religious dispute, Pilate told them to deal with Jesus on their own. When they made clear that they wanted Jesus' death, a sentence beyond their legal authority, Pilate likely was surprised that Jesus could have done something to merit such a serious penalty. He would have to examine Jesus personally to ascertain his guilt or innocence for himself. Faced with the truth. Verse 33. Then Pilate entered into the judgment hall again and called Jesus and said unto him, Art thou the King of the Jews? Verse 34. Jesus answered him, Sayest thou this thing of thyself, or did others tell it thee of me? Verse 35. Pilate answered, Am I a Jew? Thine own nation and the chief priests have delivered thee unto me. What hast thou done? Verse 36. Jesus answered, My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then would my servants fight that I should not be delivered to the Jews? But now is my kingdom not from hence. Verse 37. Pilate therefore said unto him, Art thou a king then? Jesus answered, Thou sayest that I am a king. To this end was I born, or for this cause came I into the world, that I should bear witness unto the truth. Every one that is of the truth heareth my voice. Verse 38a. Pilate saith unto him, What is truth? Two-way interrogation. John 18:33 through 35. Pilate took Jesus back into the Praetorium to question him, away from the interference of the Jewish authorities. Luke tells us that the Jews had told Pilate, We found this fellow perverting the nation and forbidding to give tribute to Caesar, saying that he himself is Christ a king. Luke 23:2. Clearly, they were accusing Jesus of being a political insurrectionist and therefore a threat to the Roman authority. Having no doubt dealt with the Jews falsely accusing others, Pilate knew that he had to question Jesus himself if he was going to take responsibility for his punishment and whatever consequences it might precipitate. If the charges turned out to be false, Pilate did not wish to be a pawn of the Jewish leaders to carry out their dirty work. When asked pointedly if he claimed to be the king of the Jews, Jesus answered as if often did by asking another question. He wanted to know if this was Pilate's own inquiry or if he was merely repeating what others had told him. Now, who was the interrogator? Suddenly, Pilate was on trial before the judge of heaven and earth. Jesus understood the rules of evidence and he knew hearsay convictions were prohibited. But Pilate responded like a seasoned, cynical politician. Pilate may also have been expressing his surprise that Jesus did not look like a pretender to the vacant throne of Judaism. He had expected to meet a sullen or belligerent rebel and met instead the calm majesty of confidence and superiority. He could not reconcile the character of the prisoner with the charge brought against him. To Jesus' question, Pilate answered, "Am I a Jew?" John 18:35. Obviously, he was not, and the grammatical form of the question expects a negative answer. As the chief Roman official in the region, Pilate was not used to being questioned or challenged. He wanted answers to his questions, not counter questions from the accused. Further, he had no interest in the Jews and their obsessions with messiahs and prophecies. He needed to know only one thing. Did Jesus' alleged claim to be king of the Jews pose a threat to Roman occupation and stability? Was he planning to overthrow Roman rule? Pilate's agitated response indicated that he was feeling frustrated with the entire affair. He wanted to establish what Jesus' legal culpability was under the Roman law, if any, and get back to his morning's business. "What have you done?" he asked Christ tersely but emphatically. A different kind of kingdom, John 18:36. Jesus' calmly profound response to Pilate's impatient charges changes the entire atmosphere of the interrogation. "My kingdom is not of this world" is significant on many levels. For Pilate, it was a direct clarification that Jesus was indeed no political threat to Rome. Rome's empire was of this present world only. The proof that Jesus had no such designs upon Rome's authority was that his servants did not fight to prevent his arrest. Jesus' kingdom was of another kind entirely. When Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world," he was declaring that his kingdom was from another place or realm. It is a heavenly kingdom, spiritual in nature and incomprehensible to the fallen human mind. Jesus was saying, "My kingdom is not like your kingdom. My kingdom is not built on violence, on blood, on war. That's the way the kingdoms of this world functions. My kingdom is not a world-like kingdom." The challenge of truth, John 18:37 through 38a. Since Jesus had spoken of his kingdom, Pilate pressed him to tell him more about it. Confirming that Pilate was correct in his assumption, Jesus revealed that the very reason he had been born was to bear witness to the truth, and that all those who are of the truth hear and respond to his witness. Pilate may have thought Jesus was merely making philosophical speculations, but standing right before him was the very embodiment of divine truth itself. Pilate's response, "What is truth?" has puzzled commentators. It is uncertain whether his question was sincere or scornful. Most do think he was being cynical. Being an uneducated man, Pilate was likely familiar with many conflicting philosophical discussions on the nature of truth. Truth discarded, verse 38b. "And when he had said this, he went out again unto the Jews, and saith unto them, I find in him no fault at all." Verse 39. But ye have a custom that I should release unto you one at the Passover. Will ye therefore that I release unto you the King of the Jews? Verse 4. Verse 40. Then cried they all again, saying, Not this man, but Barabbas. Now Barabbas was a robber. An attempt at reprieve. John 18:38b through 39. As the Roman authority in Jerusalem, Pilate himself was considered the arbiter of truth within his own jurisdiction. Apparently, the charges against Jesus brought by the chief priests had not passed muster with him as truth. He therefore declared to them, I find in him no fault at all. This is one of 3 times in John's gospel that Pilate faithfully declares Jesus' complete innocence, 19:4 and 6. Pilate intended his words in a strictly legal sense, but as with the unintended prophetic meaning in a statement by Caiaphas, 11:50 through 51. These 3 declarations of Jesus' perfect innocence carrying a prophetic and theological import from John for John's readers. They remain a thrice repeated and therefore supreme testimony of Christ's sinlessness. Since there existed at this time an annual goodwill gesture of releasing one prisoner at Passover, Pilate suggested that Jesus might be that one to be released at this time. But he apparently had underestimated the intense hatred the Jewish leaders had for Jesus. Repudiation of truth, John 18:40. Pilate had found the innocent man from Nazareth guiltless of any crimes punishable under Roman law. But instead of agreeing to his release, the chief priests and their cronies rallied furiously against any such notion. They instead clamored ferociously for the release of Barabbas, a notorious criminal who was a convicted insurrectionist and murderer. Mark 15:7, Luke 23:18-19. How ironic that they chose to compound their sin not only by condemning an innocent man, but also by pardoning a murderer and seditionist. In a further ironic twist, Barabbas soon means son of a father. The true son of the Heavenly Father was being traded for a vile criminal with no real name. Questions. 1. What was the hall of judgment? John 18:28. 2. Why did the Jews refuse to enter the hall of judgment? 3. Why did the Jewish authorities need to take Jesus to Pilate? 4. What is a malefactor? Verse 30. 5. For what other reason was it important that Jesus be turned over to the Romans? 6. What was Pilate's initial response to the Jewish leaders' demand? 7. What accusation against Jesus did the Jewish leaders bring that caught Pilate's attention? 8. What did Jesus mean by saying that his kingdom is not of this world? Verse 36. 9. What did Pilate mean by his response, what is truth? Verse 38. 10. Who was Barabbas? This concludes the Sunday School lesson for Sunday, February 13th, 2022. Thank you for listening. God bless.